leader of enterprise architecture, and I am talking about Neelesh Ajmani, who is the lead enterprise architect for Biogen and a senior data scientist. Neelesh, please turn on your camera so that we can introduce you to our global audience. So there you have it. There is Neelesh. Great to have you with us. Neelesh has over 25 years of experience helping Fortune 500 companies solve their business problems with the state-of-the-art technical solutions. His expertise in helping building strategy, enterprise architecture, planning, and setting up operational practices with a focus on producing great business outcomes. He's an author and well-proven consultant in the areas of business, digital transformation, enterprise data management, and secure business operations. Neelesh, it's always a pleasure to have you share your expertise with our global audience, and we're very grateful for your time today.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you for this introduction. And I think you have mentioned the great points about me. And what I want to mention is that I am still on the path of learning, and obviously as well as sharing what I am learning. And today my focus is, we all have gone through business transformations, and most of them are global. Sometimes they are not even global, but we have also seen a lot of failures in them. So here I am going to talk about how do we increase the chances of success, getting success in these transformations. And to start with, I will go through what should be the tenets for global business transformation, and then how we should set up the charter at a very high level so that it's clear to the main audience what we are trying to go through in this global transformation. And then I will expand upon each of the tenets, and we will understand the impact and the readiness assessment for the business transformation. And in the end, I will cover the execution strategy for any global business transformation and overall summary to see where we stand and where we have opportunities to focus on. And then we will go through with Q&A. So before I come to the tenets, I just want to give some disclaimer about the global business transformation, that my focus is on Fortune 500.
The audience is not able to see your presentation just yet, so just make sure that you hit the show screen button so that the presentation can be shared with the audience.
I did. I think I did it. Yeah, now it should work.
Now we can see it. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. I think I pressed the wrong button maybe last time. Okay. So the disclaimer is that my focus is on Fortune 500 companies, and that's where I have expertise. And we have all seen, and the stats is available all across internet if you go through various sources, that 75% of more of the global business transformations fail. So something that is fundamentally is going wrong. That's why they are failing, and it's a complex scenario. It's not a simple scenario to turn into the success, and that's what we will go through today. And also, I want to share my personal experiences and the framework. I have no intention to bring any ivory model to present over here, which you all can refer and go through in your own time. But I want to share my experiences and the framework that I carry forward with. So we'll go through the tenets one by one. Vision. Vision is very important for a global business transformation, and this may be the biggest cause of failure when the vision is not properly set. And we will go through into the details in a short while. Second is sponsorship. Who are the sponsors and what are the level of their sponsorship and their commitment? And third, what is your strategy around global business transformation? And these are like tenets. Without these, if you start producing or start executing your global business transformation, the chances are mostly you will fail. And then what is a value proposition? Because when you are talking of Fortune 500 companies, everything should be based on the value proposition and also what is in it for all the stakeholders. And the next important tenet is information technology. Without information technology, there is no business transformation that can go through in today's information world. And experience. What is the experience that we'll have to consider if we are going through the global business transformation? Again, I will go into details of each of these in a very short while. And charter setting is important. And first is, what do we mean by global? What is our definition? Like, what geographic regions are in scope? Is it the entire globe, or we are focusing on a geography and calling it as a global? What are the ecosystems those will be impacted? And circle here ecosystem, it's not only your company, it's the entire ecosystem that we will go into details that can get impacted and should get impacted, and we have to consider the transformation to transform them also. Not only you can get success because the business depends upon them. What are the legal implications in each region country? What type of compliance and data privacy rules that should be considered? What are the adoption challenges anticipated? And again, keep in mind, these are adoption challenges within your company and in the ecosystem. And what could be the other risk factors that should be anticipated? So this is just, we are trying to understand what do we mean by global over here when we are talking about any business transformation. And then, what is the business transformation we are talking about? Why we want it? Who is asking for this business transformation? What do they want? And when do they want it? What is the business urgency to go through this transformation? Who are the highest level of sponsorship? Those are available to us. And what type of innovation we are trying to produce through this business transformation? What is the level of business strategy already in place? And how strategy for successful execution? So we have a strategy which will be again at a high level, but we need to go through the how element at a high level also, so that we can have a successful execution of this strategy. So these are the charter setting elements. Like for any program or any initiative, we start with the charter. So the elements of global and business transformation are equally important to document and make sure that the key stakeholders who are involved at this level are on the same page. And continuing with that, what are the impacts of business transformation and the readiness assessment? And here I will go through each of the tenets somewhat in detail. Starting with vision. Who is setting this vision? Is it coming from the company board and CEO? Or is it coming from some CXOs or a CXO from CEO leadership team? Or it is coming from a chief information officer for global IT business transformation. So we really need to understand who is setting this vision, because we need to align with that for this transformation. And as we know, this is some representation of the hierarchy within the organization. And the main focus over here is, by showing this hierarchy, is that there needs to be alignment vertically and horizontally. Without that alignment, if we start proceeding without having this alignment in vision, the chances of success are reducing. Then the sponsorship tenant. Now, what is the level of sponsorship? Is the level of sponsorship is same as that of the vision? The people who are setting the vision, are they ready to sponsor, or they are delegating it to someone to sponsor it? So we really need to have a better understanding of that. And who all are these sponsors? Are these sponsors truly committed? Sometimes my experience is that they have a vision, they say we will sponsor, but the commitment is missing. So we really need to understand their commitment, and also what level of involvement they will provide during this transformation execution. And next important element is what role CIO is playing for this sponsorship. Remember, IT is one of the tenants. So we really need to understand how CIO is engaged. Is it committed sponsor, or is he or she is an observant and he is leaving it upon the CIO leadership team to focus during the execution? So we really need to better understand, and better is that CIO is committed so that we can improve the probability of success. And is there a board and CEO level support? When we are talking of any transformation, it is important that we have a top level support so that we can really adopt this transformation and just not go through the execution and then face challenges for going through the adoption. So what is the strategy for this transformation? First of all, is the business strategy is in place? Sometimes my experience is that business strategy is not in place and still they are going through the business transformation, and then it's a hodgepodge working on business strategy, working on other elements in parallel, and it's going to create more demotivation, and we should better avoid those kind of chaotic situations. And is the alignment with the business transformation charter there or not? As we have seen in the previous slide, we have to come up with a charter for the global business transformation, and we need to make sure that strategy is in alignment with that. If the strategy is not in alignment with that, that's a red flag and that should be addressed. And for this strategy or for this transformation, do we have all the key performance indicators properly identified and defined? That is very important because we should know the end game, what we are expecting, and we should be able to measure against that. And if we don't have that clearly identified or defined, it's again a big red flag. And then, do we have the enterprise architecture in place to support this business strategy? Without an enterprise architecture, if you want to go through any strategic transformation, the chances are the failure will be more easily assumed, because without the enterprise architecture, you cannot execute any strategy. And I will go through in the execution details what exactly I meant by this. And we should produce the heat map of capabilities. Those should be well documented and agreed upon. This heat map is basically creating the foundation understanding that where do we stand today, what all capabilities we need as per the enterprise architecture, and what are gaps in these capabilities. And the heat map gives a pictorial view, which is very important and very easy to understand. And the heat map gets adjusted as we go through the execution. And that's why it should always be well documented and agreed upon anytime we revise this heat map also. And as the transformations of such level are multi-year initiatives, these are not like a few months initiative or a year initiative. So there should be a multi-generational plan in place for the strategy execution. And by multi-generational, I mean when you are trying to address the heat map, you build upon your foundation, you expand upon your foundation, and you gain the maturity level by expansion of the foundation. And you can call it as you are going from one generation to the next generation in your end state achievement, and how you will plan that properly upfront, that is going to help you. And is the actionable roadmap in place? Because plan without action is no good, and there should be an actionable roadmap that should be in place as part of the strategy. Now let's consider the next tenet, value proposition. Now, is the well-defined value proposition is in place or not can be understood based on the following components that it should be considered for. Like, what is in it for the core company, employees, customers, shareholders, and profitability, all is part of the core company. And is every functional organization who will be involved, are they fully aware of this transformation? Because I have seen some organizations within the company may not even know that some transformation is going through. So that's a big red flag again. And again, does every functional organization aligned with the value proposition? Do they see what is in it for them and for others and how they have to collaborate? So that should be very clear. And every functional organization should have a commitment, because when we say global business transformation, it will touch all functions of the company. And if the commitment level is missing from any function, that is again a big red flag. So value proposition should make sure that the commitment is there and they all understand the value proposition. And it's not only within the company, as I mentioned, global business transformation impacts the ecosystem. So the ecosystem should know what is in it. And the ecosystem consists of the environment that may get impacted in any region or in any country, the society that should be benefited with this transformation, and it should not be any negative impact. So that should be part of the value proposition. What are the partners, vendors, and the supply chain of the company? They all are part of the ecosystem and they all should be part of this value proposition. Without that, you cannot go through any global business transformation successfully. Continuing, information technology. Now, this is an important tenet. And why it is important? Because information is the bloodstream of the organization. Information is generated with the help of technology, and there is no business transformation that is feasible without involvement of information technology. So we really need to consider this as a vision level element, not as a traditional mode of service level element that whatsoever will be given to them, they will just execute upon it. They should be part of the vision. What is the experience? And this experience is all across, like within the company, what is the experience of any previous business transformations at a global level? What is the experience of the executives and the leadership team? And what is their level of awareness within their industry and in other industries of any such global business transformations, so that that is part of their experience and what can be learned from that, and that should not be repeated. And again, for all these above, like I mentioned, there could be successful business transformation type experience, there could be unsuccessful, and we really need to focus on global business transformation, whether those were successful or unsuccessful, and build the experience based on that. And again, if you have an experience, there should be some documented form of lesson learned when you are going through such a strategic, innovative global business transformation. And those should be understood by all type of stakeholders. And again, this is a question mark, who are considered as stakeholders for a global business transformation. So I think we all have our own perspective, but my perspective is everyone is a stakeholder when you are going through a global business transformation, and by ignoring anyone, there could be a red flag. So we should consider everyone as a stakeholder. And again, the level of stakeholder involvement could be different, but we should not say, oh, we should not worry about this constituent or this type of stakeholder, because it impacts everyone. Now, I will go through the execution strategy for global business transformation. And this is very important because this is creating a vehicle using which we can execute. And without having a good vehicle path forward, it is difficult to go from point A to point Z. Now, I know the focus is of this whole conference is enterprise architecture. And as I mentioned, there is no business transformation that can be executed without an enterprise architecture. And here I want to show what is my meaning of enterprise architecture. And if any one of these components are missing, there is a red flag. First of all, the end goal of enterprise architecture is producing secure business operations. And within secure business operations, there can be a book published or many books are already published, But if I say high level components, it's related to identity and access management to manage business operations, the zero trust network security, which is one of the major layers of the 7 levels of information technology. Without that, we cannot stand up any systems or execute any transformation. And there should be a business CXO level stake in the secured operations. They have some stake in the operations, but my emphasis over here is how do you achieve secured business operations? And if you go through any kind of hack that you have learned in the recent past or in the history, always the gap is in the business operation security. There is some vulnerability that was left and that has produced that hack, which has caused big damage or any level of damage. So this should be a prime focus. And then the business architecture. Again, business architecture is a somewhat not very well understood term in the industry. And in my definition, it consists of business capabilities. We all know in the enterprise architecture, without capabilities, we cannot produce enterprise architecture. But I am talking about for business architecture, business capabilities, business policies and processes, and the aligned business organization structure. Because you cannot produce the capabilities or have policies or processes, but there is no aligned organization that can execute those capabilities or that can follow those policies or run those processes. So there should be an alignment. And all these three components have a lot of details, but to produce the execution strategy, the focus should be given on all three elements equally. And next, information technology architecture. And we all know that technical capabilities, technology policies and processes, and similarly aligned technology organization structure is important to properly execute. And sometimes we have seen that technology is going through a lot of transformation at a speed of a light, and the organization structures are not getting adjusted to align with that. The good examples are cloud transformation is occurring in every company around the globe, but is the IT organization fully aligned to go through that transformation or to support that transformation? I have a big question mark for that. And then the important elements are what is the heat map that should reflect both the technical and business capabilities, and also the heat map in the security area to produce secured business operations. And what should be the multi-generational plan that should be properly documented. And according to me, when I say about actionable roadmap, we should focus on first 4 quarters so that we can reproduce the actionable roadmap for the next 4 quarters in the fourth quarter. But without having first 4 quarters of actionable plan, it will be difficult to go through this journey in a successful and in a timely manner in an optimal way. And again, the alignment is critical among all these components, and governance is required among all these components. A cross-functional collaboration governance should be in place so that, like we say, we will not leave any stone unturned. This way, the governance can have representative from all the perspective for the decision making, and a collaborative way the global business transformation execution can be done. Now, what are the pillars of enterprise architecture? I just want to re-emphasize. We know this people, process, technology, which is commonly used. According to me, data and culture are also important, and those should be part of the pillars. And what exactly I meant in terms of the global business transformation from people perspective, all involved stakeholders of the company and its ecosystem, those are impacted and responsible for execution. So when we are talking about people, we have to consider within the company and its ecosystem and the level of impact so that we can form the stakeholder team accordingly. And processes, when we talk about, it's again functional, cross-functional, and it goes for every ecosystem company, their function and cross-functional, and both business and IT, including governance, policy, and decision making. So it's not just the processes, it has policies element, it has decision making and governance. And for technology, the focus should be on all 7 layers that are associated, because in these kind of transformations, we are going to impact or touch all the 7 layers, and we should make sure that this pillar is as strong as it is before transformation, and it should be same way after transformation. And the data, which is a critical pillar, as I mentioned, information is a bloodstream, and information is produced through the data that is all always created with the help of business, and raw data turns into information that turns into wisdom. But we should not ignore this critical pillar, and I have seen again and again data is not considered equally important, and that's why I'm emphasizing on this. Without having a good focus on data for the transformations, what data it will produce, what existing data will be impacted, what kind of new data will be produced, and what should be the strategy around capabilities around that data management, those all should be piece of the enterprise architecture. And culture, which is going to touch all the elements, and it has the biggest impact, and it requires executive leadership commitment, because culture change cannot be done within the company by middle management. It can only be done with the help of executive leadership, and it's not like they have just made the statement and the culture change can be adopted. They have to remain committed to ensure that the journey of culture change is executed properly, and they are supporting, they are there to answer any questions from any stakeholders, and providing sponsorship and any kind of additional motivational support that is required to go through the cultural change. And what should be the execution team? Because for any global business transformation, these are the checklist items for an execution team. And according to me, these are critical and equally important, that we have a well-balanced business and IT governance team. I have already mentioned it few times earlier. And a strong architecture team who is capable of developing not only the end state architecture, but that is also led by a well-proven enterprise architect. And there should be a well-balanced program execution core and extended team. I know everybody is a stakeholder, but still we need to have a program structure for which there is a core team and there is an extended team, and that should have a global involvement cross-functionally and from the ecosystem. We should not ignore the ecosystem, because if we go through the business transformation without focusing on ecosystem, we will face a lot of challenges in adoption, because they are not part of this journey, and they may have their different priorities, and it will be difficult for you to get adoption help from them. And a well-versed team. Basically, nowadays, we cannot do anything in the waterfall way or in a traditional way. So this team should be well versed, who can follow iterative and agile execution methodologies. And it's for every element. It's not only IT level agile execution, it is entire ecosystem level agile execution. And then there should be a well proven program manager who is capable of developing and executing holistic communication strategy. We all know the biggest reason, according to me, for any program execution failure is a weak communication strategy. And with the help of program manager and the holistic communication strategy, we can keep all the stakeholders properly informed as per their level of impact and the level of understanding that they should need to know. And that's where a holistic strategy and a well proven program manager is important for this type of initiative. And then a strong change management team. As we know, we go through a lot of changes, not only in culture, but in all the pillars. And there should be a strong team who can manage that execution of the change management. And there should be a well-proven change agent. And this is my last slide before we jump on to question and answer. And here I am trying to show at a very high level how we assess based on the readiness and the impact assessment, where business stands, where IT stands, and what are the opportunities to really get everything in grip before we start going through this execution strategy for global business transformation. So if we have both business and information technology readiness at a low level, so we know that all the tenants are not holistically considered, and we will need to visit those tenants again. And if suppose IT level readiness is high and business readiness is low, then again, we need to make sure that there is an executive leadership level commitment and alignment that is both horizontally and vertical within the business teams. And if it is a high business level readiness, but low IT level readiness, so this is still considered as a sweet spot in my mind, because among 6 tenants, IT is 1 tenant. It has a good weightage, but making them ready is still easier if all the other tenants are in a good shape and business is ready. And if both business and IT readiness is at a high level, so it is a great opportunity, but still that doesn't mean that we don't need a full holistic commitment and strategy for the successful execution of the journey. So thank you again for listening to me, and I am happy to answer any questions. Back to you, Jose.
Thank you so much, Neelesh. Thank you for a real great view of transformations and the components that are necessary for successful transformations. I'm going to ask you perfectly to stop sharing your screen, which you have, so that I can engage with you here and with the questions from the audience directly. So the first question that I have for you is coming from the commentary, and it says that, you know, we've discussed that so many of these transformations that now we have looked at, that they have taken place, if you use the criteria that if at least one or more of the advertised outcomes were not achieved, you have over a 70% failure rate on the transformations. So you cover a lot of different places here where this can fail, but from a practical standpoint, where are you seeing your own practices and support of Fortune 500 companies, where you're seeing the biggest failure modes on these transformations?
According to me, vision setting. Vision is the most important, and vision comes again from what level? Because if the vision is not clear, and if you ask, if I may use the military term, if you ask troops to go and execute on any strategy, and you don't know what is the vision of the leadership team, what exactly they want as the achievement that should come, the chances of success are low.
Yeah, that is for sure. And of course, you know, on the execution side, having that vision, then being consistent with that vision is something that organizations struggle with. If you look at Fortune 500 companies, the average tenure of a CEO on a Fortune 500 company, I think the last data that I looked at, it's something like 3 or 4 years at most that they are, you know, at the leadership spot. And then you think that with changes in CEO, there's probably changes in that vision. I think a lot of organizations become chronically inconsistent because they're always shifting their vision. And it's not a sign of progress, it's a sign of disorientation, that they don't know what this should really be. So if you have the right vision, what are some of the things on the execution side that you see are that organizations are faltering on? Why is that the execution of that vision is so really unsuccessful?
So it is very important the communication strategy and involvement of all type of stakeholders. You may have a strong vision, you may have a strong executive leadership, but they are not involved in the execution. And the execution is done by the leadership team, but still they are not involved in the executive decision making. They should be always aligned with the executive leadership, but if the communication of the stakeholders in the core team, extended team, and beyond that, if they are not constantly communicated about the challenges, about the progress that has been made, there will be gaps in the communication, gaps in the understanding in a functional level or within the ecosystem, if I may consider, between the company and its partners or its supply chain. And this is a multi-legged scenario. And if any leg is broken, there will be destabilization. And that all can be achieved properly with the thorough, holistic communication strategy, and that is executed consistently throughout in the execution phase.
So you talk about a couple of things that are really interesting. One is that the vision, and the other one is a bit of the communication. And I would say that there is sometimes the conviction on the vision and the way you communicate. I don't know what your experience has been. My experience has been working with Fortune 500 CEOs is that sometimes when you close the door and you're having one-on-one conversations with them, I'm not sure if they have strong conviction on their vision sometimes. It's sometimes they're just following what a competitor did, or they think that this is the right way of going, and it's striking that someone at that leadership level can be so uncertain. But the way that I think it represents itself, the way it manifests itself, is that on that communication that you're talking about, the conviction and the consistency of messaging is not very good. And I wonder, I mean, these people became CEOs of Fortune 500 companies because supposedly they are intelligent, they are driven, they are great leaders. What do you think why do you think so many CEOs today on the very large organizations are lacking that conviction and vision and communication that you talked about that's so important? What's missing that's making them lack in those areas?
See, first of all, I would explain vision and strategy. Okay, vision should be at a very, very high level, and that is future vision. Okay, where I want to take this company and how this transformation would help me achieve that vision. And then there is a strategy around it. Now, because these are complex and these involve not only the company but the ecosystem, so we need to make sure all components of executing or achieving this vision through the strategy are moving together. And to make sure they are moving together, we need the execution leadership also very strong, and an alignment between that leadership and the CEO. And it's a iterative process. It's not like one time activity and then CEO just leave it upon the executive leadership to execute upon it. So there should be a constant loop of communication between the CEO and the executive leadership, and also with the ecosystem, because it is creating value for the entire ecosystem. It is not only creating value for your company. So what is in it for me, that needs to be repeated. And there are challenges because it's a complex transformation when you're talking about global level. So there should be a open communication channel, like the challenges that are being faced within the cross functional in different regions or within the ecosystem. There is a communication path to understand that and to react upon that, not just understood and don't take an action. So vision should not change, but your strategy should be adjustable accordingly. So it's a like a, that's why there is a 75% or more failure. because it's not like one time planning preparation. You are in an iterative mode of planning along with iterative mode of execution, and you are adjusting everything accordingly.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think that you talk very clearly about the need for the discipline on the vision, on the strategy. But I feel, Nilesh, that at least these are my personal experiences with a subset of Fortune 500 organizations, that there is a lack of courage in the senior leadership level in a lot of organizations. And certainly we live in a world with a lot of uncertainty. And perhaps there are many reasons why the display of courage, I think, and conviction on vision is maybe not as I would expect it to be from a lot of very senior leaders. And I think that when that happens, everything else falters, because there is people are just waiting for how that leader is going to align. And if the leader does not align strongly with that vision and strategy, as you said, the people underneath this, they just they don't move towards the vision. They just manage the status quo, and that's, as we know, is a recipe for long-term disaster. Now, what are you seeing in terms of enterprise architecture and the role of enterprise architecture in identifying the right technologies for the organization, for the companies that do this well? What is the approach that they have on there? Because there's so many exponential technologies happening right now in parallel. Probably in no other time in human history we have had this many technologies go exponential in parallel. We have had exponential technologies, but not so many at the same time. Um, with this very fast-moving environment on technology, how do you see the organizations that do it well? How do they identify and prioritize the technologies that will be the right technologies for them? What approaches you see them using today?
A very important question, first of all, this one, Jose. So it goes with what companies mean with enterprise architecture. Okay, and enterprise architecture is not just a technology play. And in your question, you have emphasized few times on the technology moving very fast, and that should be okay. That should not be a big concern for the successful enterprise architecture, because enterprise architecture, first of all, like I laid down in my execution slides, is covering elements of secured business operations and business architecture. It's not just technology architecture. And where the elements of secured business operations or business architecture focus should be on why, what, and when, not on how piece. And there are elements of their how piece also, but as a enterprise architecture level, the focus should be on those questions. And enterprise architecture is not dependent upon technology. Enterprise architecture should be independent of technology. It is at a capability level and at a addressing why I need to build this capability, who should be involved, when this should be available, not beyond that. And how part will address how this should be built, which has again business architecture components or secured business operations component, because we don't want to destabilize that security element. But then the technology piece comes into play, that how we achieve. Do we really need to look for the shiny stars which are coming up now with the new technology buzzwords, or we need to look into our existing technology platforms and how do we manage through them or expand those to achieve the why, what, and when pieces. And it should be iterative. Like I mentioned, we cannot go through in the waterfall mode anymore. It should be iterative and in an agile manner so that the adjustments can be made. And then enterprise architecture is used at a true level. and then it will produce, or it will be used as a vehicle to align with the strategy and ensuring that all execution should be done in a successful manner.
Very good, Neelesh. Thank you so much. I mean, we're on time right now, and I want to thank you on behalf of our global audience, and specifically those from Europe who are connected today, who are watching either this live or they are watching the recording of our conversation after the conference. It's always a great gift for all of us to have your expertise, your practical insights from great years of experience across so many different industries. Thank you so much for taking the time for sharing that expertise with all of us.
Yeah, thank you, Jose, for giving me this opportunity, and to all of the audience who have listened to me or would listen to this recording. And thank you again for all of your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Neelesh Ajmani, lead enterprise architecture, senior data scientist, cross-industry advisor on enterprise architecture and strategy, vision, and many of the other things that he talked about here with us today. A real gift for all of us to lean in and learn and share with Neelesh. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the final session of Enterprise Architecture Europe Live, Day 2. We are going to be back tomorrow at the same broadcast channel, and we're going to start tomorrow with a quick view of what's coming up tomorrow. We're going to kick off the day with Donald Cook, who is a multiple industry award-winning senior executive who is now at Allergan leading their business transformation. And then he's going to talk to us about the architecture, enterprise architecture as the foundation for successful transformations. He has incredible experiences that he's going to share with us. He's going to be followed up by an innovation architect and leader at SAP, who is going to discuss creating native EA integration strategies with modern day multi-cloud environments for agility and adaptability. That's Rashbra Subramanian, who is a leader at SAP, and he's going to be followed up by a different type of session on enterprise architecture and for enterprise architects. And it's the enterprise architecture and the power of storytelling with Anun Sinan, who is going to talk to us about how to connect technology to business outcomes, and also with professionals and customers. How do you build your compelling stories around enterprise architecture? And we're going to wrap up the day tomorrow with a consultant and leader at the Metropolitan Police in London, Rakesh Patel, who is going to present also on how to communicate effectively to implement enterprise architectures that will drive successful business transformations. So all of that coming up tomorrow at day 3 of Enterprise Architecture Europe Live. I want to thank everybody for your incredible engagement today. Great questions asked, great commentary throughout. Also, remember, if you have additional questions, want to say thanks to the speakers, want to connect to the speakers, want to say thank you to the sponsors, or have a question, go onto the LinkedIn under my name for this conference, post your comment there, and I guarantee you you're going to get a response. So make sure it could be a hello, it could be thank you for making this accessible to all of us. It could be a question to a sponsor, it could or a presenter. It could be that you want to connect with the presenter. All of that is available on the LinkedIn for this conference. So for now, thank you for your engagement. Whatever you are in the world, have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow at this channel.